The Holy Gospel is written in the first chapter of St. John, beginning at the first verse. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through Him, and without Him not one thing came into being. What has come into being, in Him was life, and the life was the light of the people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him and believed in his name, he gave power to become the children of God, who were born not of blood and of will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory as the glory of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Here ends the Gospel. Please be seated. And usually on these festival days, I feel like I can come back down into the congregation rather than stand on some high pulpit up there. You get kind of pared down when we have so many services in one day, in a 24-hour period. So we're glad you're here on this great Christmas morning. It's always one of the two great celebrations of the year we have in the Christian church. So what do we talk about today? Let's talk about gifts. Isn't that what we should talk about on Christmas, is gifting? I see some heads nodding. Well, maybe not. What is the significance of gifts? You would think that this gifting thing would be the greatest thing on earth. And because we think about it in terms of children most of the time, of running down and having this great experience where you find a pony under the tree or something like that. But gifting is, I think gifting has gotten to be work. As I go to restaurants during the Christmas season or coming closer to Christmas or hang around the malls, which I don't do a lot of, but when I listen to people talk, they talk about gifting. And instead of something exuberant and something they're really excited about, usually they're kind of passive about it or nervous, anxious. What do I get with this person anyway? And the cry is that Christmas has gotten too commercial. And we say that every year, and every year the expenditure for Christmas seems to go up and up. And it's kind of, we complain about it, but nevertheless we think it's something that's really important, and it should be there to stay. I know many times in the past I talked about Christmas and the possibility, and talked this over with my wife, about the possibility of just taking all the money that we would spend on the Christmas presents for each other and give it to somebody who really needed it. And then she wouldn't talk to me for 2 weeks. It was not pleasant. I mean, Christmas gifting was kind of the big thing. It was the highlight of the year. What do we know about gifting? Because sometimes our gifting takes place at the last minute. That's what my gifting does. If I'd started shopping before December 24th, they would think something was wrong with me. But usually when we come to the end of shopping, it is in desperation and sometimes even distaste. But think about gifts for a while, the way we give gifts, because we're going to compare it to the way God gives gifts. There are many ways that we give something that we really don't really communicate the spirit of giving. One is the "I don't like you the way you are, so I'll change you" gift. And I've said that this is usually a gift given by a woman. There is an improvement that can be made. When I was younger, I had a classmate who was 14 years old and had a terrible case of acne. And so the aunt decided what she should do on Christmas was give him a cure for his acne. And under the Christmas tree, he got this tube of acne cream. Not exactly what he wanted to see under the tree. And much more than that, when he tried it, it didn't work anyway. But sometimes wives want to say, well, I'm going to get this for my husband because he needs this. Not something he wants, but something he needs. In other words, he's got 10-year-old boots, he needs new boots. And so you give him the boots, and then after Christmas he wears the old boots because they're comfortable. He's had them for 10 years. They're familiar with his feet. I'm not going to go there. Yes, I will. I was in this a clothing store the other day, and I saw this one person come in with jeans that were torn through the knees. They all looked like she'd been kneeling, saying prayers for 20 years. And my response is to say, I think I need to buy her a new pair of jeans as Christmas can't afford anything. And I was told, you're an idiot. That's the fashion these days. But that was kind of a gift. I don't like it the way you are. I didn't like it the way it was. Look, tacky. But I guess that's the style. So sometimes we give gifts with the idea of, well, I like it better if you did this or wore this or used this. And then we have the gifts where we say, I bought this gift for you, but it's really for me. And this is usually a gift given by a man. As I've told people before, my father, when he bought Christmas gifts, he'd always buy something that would improve his life. It usually was in the form of an appliance. So I'll buy a new oven, or I'll buy a washing machine, or a dryer. Something that'll make your life easier, but of course it made his life easier because then my mother didn't have to complain about it, and she served them better and faster. And then when the big appliances were all used up, she had to go for more gifts, iron, blender, something else that would get him something better in his life. I said that Friday night I was at the Lakeline Mall and I walked past Victoria's Secret. There wasn't any women in the store, it was all men. That's not a men's store. And I know now that Victoria's Secret is the biggest gift given for oneself rather than for somebody else. Then we have the worthless novelty gift. Most of you here are old enough to remember the pet rock, right? I think it was in sometime in the 70s. And sometime before Christmas, this woman got the idea that if you painted a rock and put eyes or a face on it, or some kind of painting, it would sell, and it did. It broke sales records that year. A worthless rock, too heavy for a paperweight, and not really a proper weapon to use to subdue somebody else. And I remember going to one house where that rock was on the table. And I asked the woman there, what is that? And she said, you don't remember? I didn't. But I said, what was it? And she says, a pet rock. I said, what's a pet rock? Well, it's a rock. I said, you think that's a pet? And I said, do you really like that? And she said, no, but I got to keep it there because the person who gave it to me comes by once in a while. And She said, when I was going to buy the rock, I told my husband, oh, she'll get a kick out of this. I said, did you get a kick out of it? And she said, I hated it. And I said, well, why do you have it on your table then? And she said, well, I have it on the table because she comes by once in a while, and because I want to remind myself not to buy stupid gifts for people. That's the novelty gift. Then there's a cheapskate gift. And that's what I'm accused of sometimes. But I really usually spend something I buy myself. One of the things that we do is we re-gift. And I watched a television program this week on one of the news channels by an expert on gifting. And he was talking about what's proper to give. And I said, what is this guy doing anyway? How can he get paid to come on television and give an opinion on what's proper gifting or not? That's the silliest thing I ever heard of. But he was saying that re-gifting is all right. And I was thinking to myself, if you got a gift and you didn't like it, isn't it possible that if you gave it to somebody else, they might not like it either? And you're just getting rid of something in the house. It's not really a heartfelt gift. It's not really something that warms the cockles of your heart. And then there's passive-aggressive gifts where you just like to hurt somebody by giving it. I remember a young bride that had been given by her mother-in-law a can of weed destroyer that shot a flame out of it. It burnt the weed. And when I looked on the back, on directions, it said, be careful how you use this product. Hold it exactly straight upright, or it might back up and blow up in your hand. And I was thinking, the mother-in-law is thinking, I can get rid of her by just having her shoot this can. And why is it that so many of the gifts we give really sometimes don't make a lot of sense? And we joke about it. But in reality, there are important things about giving. But what we celebrate on Christmas is a giving gift, a gift of God, the gift of grace. The greatest gift in the world, the greatest celebration of them all as we celebrate it. But let's point out a little the difference between the giving that we do and the giving that God gives. I think it's important. It's important on Christmas to really mark that difference. When we give a gift, usually it's based on some kind of deserving of the gift. Who do we give gifts to? Everybody? No, we don't. We make a list. Who's important enough in our life, or who's done something for us that we feel it's necessary to remember at Christmas with some kind of special notation in a gift. And so we have to make a list because we don't have endless resources anyway. At least we think that as far as giving a material gift. But when God gives a gift, He gives it to everybody. There's no special list. There's no hierarchy. It's just given freely to all people. The gift on Christmas Day was the gift to everybody, no matter what color, no matter what kind of a creed, no matter what, the gift is for everybody. Secondly, when we give a gift, we have some kind of hierarchy of gifts. Those that are closest to us, or those we want to impress the most, or those that we want something out of, we give the most important gift, the most expensive one. And sometimes that becomes an issue for people. If somebody is really close, for instance, a spouse, notices that a gift is given that's of more value materially to somebody else, there's a complaint. And that's one of the things that children really complain about when they get old enough to realize that there is some kind of a value, monetary value attached to the gift. And so if you have a number of kids, you have to be a little careful. Is that true with your family? Nothing like putting visitors on the spot, right? That's well, we worked on the congregation before. But with God, there's no hierarchy. There's no more important gift for one person than the other. I just give the best. I give the best to everybody. That's God's gifting. No designation of who gets one, no designation of importance of gifting. Now, when we give a gift, sometimes we expect a gift back, right? Very often we're going to give a gift to somebody who gives us a gift. Now, we don't worry about that with children because we don't expect children to buy gifts, particularly expensive gifts. Although in some cases, parents make a special point of having the children create something to give just to understand the concept of giving. And that's good. That's important. But as human beings, we have a tendency to equalize out the gifts. I want to kind of find out how much they're going to spend, so I spend the same amount. I've used the illustration many times of my aunt and my mother who used to exchange birthday gifts. And they would give each other $10 on their birthday. One year, one would give, on one's birthday, one would give the other one $10. And if the next birthday that came up, she'd get the $10 back. And they kept that $10 going for 40 years, as far as I know. I said, what was the point of that? But it became very important. And then one year, my aunt forgot to give it. It was a major crisis. Didn't get the one back. Now, as I said before, and the other two times I've presented this message, this is the thing you aren't going to like. God expects something back. With the gift He gave, expect something back. Sorry to tell you that. It's not without some kind of expectation to it. Now, it doesn't mean if you're going to give the gift back and gift in comparative that you're in any kind of trouble as far as eternity. Doesn't mean that God won't love you, but He does expect something back. In our epistle text last night, Paul talks about it to his fellow apostle Titus. He said, what God expects for this gift of grace is that you live out your life in dedication to Him. You give yourself back to Him in terms of living the kind of life that benefits other people. That you find a purpose. That you find a goal in life. That's the gift you give back. See, in Rome, when you gave a gift, you did expect it back. That was protocol in Roman culture. And so when Paul talks about it, he talks about it in the culture in which he lives. Yeah, we expect something back, particularly merchants. But God expects something back from you too. And so that's the gift of Christmas. Then we have this silly idea as givers, of human givers, and you've heard it many times, especially when the gift is small or unexpectedly less than you were hoping for. It's not the gift, it's the thought that counts. Right? Heard that? God says it's not the thought that counts, it's the gift that counts. James put it in very, very common terms. When he wrote his letter, he said, if you see somebody that's in need, that's starving, and you say, oh, be of good cheer, be happy, God is with you, what difference does that make? You got to feed him. You got to give him something. And what would life be like this Christmas morning if God had looked at you and me and said, well, I know you need salvation, and I really feel for you, and I'm thinking about it a lot, but I'm just not going to put myself on the line. I'm not going to give my son for you. You work it out on your own. It's not the thought that counts. It's the gift that counts. And so then we get down to what is the most important gift. And that gets back to God saying the only really gift you can give is the gift of yourself. That's really what our material gifts are supposed to show. A lot of thought, a lot of caring, a lot of looking at the other person and giving not what I think they should have, but what they really want and need. The only gift that you can give is the gift to yourself. And so just as our little children's service sermon, that's the message that needs to get out. One of the greatest gifts you can give today is hug somebody else. To give them some support, some emotional support. To show you care. That's the lesson of gifting. That's the lesson of gifting. And gifting is not a bad thing. Gifting is a good thing. But if you get into the real spirit of giving, you understand everybody needs the gift of you. I mean everybody. Don't hold love back to anybody. And don't give it just in varying degrees. Put yourself in the line a lot. And remember, it's not the thought that counts, it's what you give. Not necessarily materially. And most of the time, not materially. But actually putting your life into theirs and making it more enjoyable and real and gift-inspired. Remember, God gave the only thing that He could. He gave Himself for you and your salvation. And He turns to you this Christmas morning and He said, you've got a lot to give. You've got a real gift in your life. Give it freely. Amen.